Today, under the chapter of communication and network concept, we are going to see about how the switch will work and how to set up the network with the switch. First, how does a network switch will work? We all know that switch has the basic function of transferring the data from one node to another node or from one location to another location based upon their MAC addresses. But the hardware and software functionality configuration may varies. Like this network switch can be used in the following ways. First one, edges or access switch. This edges or access switch will used to manage the traffic, that is once they are entering into the network or exiting the network, they are managing the traffic. And some of the edge devices like PC, personal computers or desktop computers, and some of the access point devices like that is wireless devices like printer, scanner, etc. Next one is aggregation or distribution switch. Aggregation or distribution switch means aggregation stands for it will increase the lifetime of collecting the information from the opponent side. But distribution means there is a dissemination. It will distribute the data to the various nodes, that is sensors. This will done within the optimal intermediate layer based upon the connected layer. This connects to the edge switch, that is which may transmit the traffic. It will transmit the traffic from one switch to another switch or to the core switch. Core switch means the device which is connected near to the router. Okay. Next one is core switch, is the backbone of the network. What is the function of this core switch means? It will connect the aggregation or the edge switch or the user to the device edges of to the data center network, that is entrepreneur LAN to the routers. So finally, a switch is a multi-port bridge. It is used in the data link layer of OSI model, that is in layer 2. Here the main function of the switch is to transfer the data based upon their MAC address, that is media access control address. And finally we can use the switch to forward the data at the layer 3, that is in the network layer of OSI model, because it is having the routing functionalities, that is router functionalities, routing the table functionalities. So layer 3 switch is often known as a multi-layer switch. These are the various layers of OSI model, that is physical layer, data link layer, network layer, transport layer, session layer, presentation layer and application layer. We all already known that in physical layer we are using the network device called hub, and that is used only for supporting the connections. And in data link layer now we are reading about the switch. So when a frame want to send the data but the MAC address is not recognized by the switch means they will folding all the switch domain ports to the intended recipient. During this process the saturation will occur. What does the saturation means? There is a fixed bandwidth for the amount of information to be transmitted in a given time. But by folding and transferring, when the network attempt to exceed the capacity or the bandwidth means this saturation will occur. So to avoid the saturation, they will use the bump technique, folding technique. What does mean by bump folding technique means? That is B for broadcast and U for unicast and M for multicast. Based upon any one of this transmission, they used to send the data to the network traffic to the designation when the sender does not know the network address, that is MAC addresses. MAC address theriyadappa they are using this bump folding technique to avoid the saturation problem. So switch is an essential component in network and they are used to link the devices on the same network, and it is used for transferring the data for communication purpose. Based on the MAC address it was transferring the data, and finally this MAC address can be stored in the device called network interface card, which is a part of device that connected to the switch through the Ethernet cable. We know that Ethernet cable can have one card called network interface card. So this MAC address will determine the address of the sending out of packet, and the incoming packet should be delivered to that particular addresses. But in the network layer we have the IP addresses. No, it is sometimes can be visible and it can be changed based upon the process. But the MAC address is always used to identify the endpoint of the device, that is where the data has to be transferred. So when device that transmit the packets to the other devices, First it will reach the switch. Here this switch will scan the packet header to find out what the process to do the next. Once after checking some of it, it will check the address of the destination and transmit the data to that particular devices, that is packet to the particular device through the port. Or many times the switch will operate only in a full duplex mode to avoid the possibility of the collisions. Here it gives the entire bandwidth of the connection between the devices and the switches when it is operated in a full duplex mode. So even though switch can perform its functions in the layer 2, it will also do some performance in layer 3. So it is said to be as a multi-layer switch. So it is because of when performing in layer 3, it is necessary to allow the VLAN, that is virtual local area networks, that is traffic passed between the switches can be moved from one subnet to another subnet based on routing. How to set up a switch? That is depending upon the devices we are used. For example, if it is a small office LAN or a home network, we need just switches typically plug on to the one of the port on a router. But a switch expands the networks of wired interconnected devices in a small networks also by including the desktop, laptop and printers. So the switch is always purchased based upon the needs and the requirement. That is how many ports we needed, that the where we are going to connect the devices and the place, that is a LAN or where. And this switch is always connected to the router using an cables, that is a straight cables, that is called uplink ports. If there is no uplink port is not present, hence the switch will be connected to the any one of the port of the router. Once the router and the switch are connected, the IP address of the devices can be configured among each other. Subscribe for next updates.